Once upon a time in sunny Palm City, Florida, a remarkable young girl named Jasmine Carney, age 10, displayed extraordinary bravery and resilience in a terrifying encounter with a shark. Jasmine, known for her adventurous spirit, was playing joyfully on the picturesque Hobe Sound beach, relishing the feel of the sand between her toes and the refreshing touch of the ocean's waves. It was a beautiful day, with the sun casting its warm glow upon the glistening waters. Jasmine's grandmother, who had accompanied her, watched the scene unfold from the shore. Suddenly, her eyes widened in alarm as she witnessed her beloved granddaughter running towards her, shrieking in pain and fear. The tranquil ambiance of the beach was shattered, replaced by the sound of Jasmine's panicked cries. "Something bit me," Jasmine wailed, her voice trembling with shock and pain. Her grandmother rushed to her side, her heart pounding with concern, and she quickly assessed the severity of the situation. Blood mixed with sand coated Jasmine's legs, evidence of a scary encounter lurking beneath the waves. Acting swiftly, Jasmine's grandmother, a pillar of strength and love, scooped up the injured girl and carried her to safety. Together, they went to the nearest hospital, where medical professionals awaited their arrival. Jasmine's foot, the primary target of the shark's aggression, was in grave condition, and urgent medical intervention was required to prevent further damage. Arriving at the hospital, Jasmine was immediately rushed into the capable hands of a trauma surgeon. Her wounds, covered in blood and sand, were expertly attended to. The surgeon took great care in sterilizing the deep cut to stop the bleeding and prevent further infection. Jasmine's bravery did not waver during this harrowing ordeal. She displayed strength beyond her tender years, refusing to succumb to fear. As the doctor examined the extent of the damage, it became apparent that the shark's teeth had severed a critical blood vessel supplying Jasmine's foot. 2 of her toes were rendered immobile due to nerve and tendon damage. The doctor, astounded by the young girl's resilience, marveled at the sight before him. A foot enveloped by bites revealing bones, tendons, vessels, and nerves, all exposed to the world. Jasmine recounted her valiant struggle against the tenacious shark to the doctor. Her vivid recollection painted a picture of determination and defiance. "He wasn't letting go," Jasmine bravely stated, illustrating the magnitude of her battle. Immediately, antibiotics were given to Jasmine to prevent any infections that the shark or the ocean water could have caused. Under her medical team's compassionate care, Jasmine underwent a 2-hour procedure to reconstruct her damaged foot. With skill and precision, the surgeon delicately stitched together the severed flesh, mending the shattered pieces like a master artisan. Over 100 stitches adorned Jasmine's foot, a testament to the remarkable resilience of the girl and her doctors. Jasmine's road to recovery was a challenging one. Days turned into weeks as she remained under the watchful eye of her medical team, navigating the challenging path toward rehabilitation. But Jasmine's spirit was unwavering, her determination unyielding. With each passing day, her strength grew, bolstered by the steadfast support of her family, friends, and the medical professionals who attended to her. Finally, after a month of intense therapy and rehabilitation, Jasmine was ready to leave the hospital. Her foot, though still healing, showed promising signs of progress. Her doctor, confident in her resilience, assured her family that Jasmine would regain her mobility. "She'll be running in no time," he optimistically declared. "I believe it will take a few more months, but she'll be back to normal." Jasmine returned home, her heart filled with gratitude for the unwavering support she had received throughout her arduous journey. She embarked on a dedicated physical therapy regimen, determined to reclaim her former strength and vitality. Each day, she worked tirelessly, pushing her limits and surpassing expectations. Months passed and Jasmine's tenacity bore fruit. Step by step, she regained her ability to walk, run, and play freely. Her smile, once tinged with pain and adversity, now radiated with the joy of victory. Jasmine's bravery inspired all who heard her story, a testament to the indomitable human spirit. As the sun set in Florida, Jasmine stood on the beach where it all began, beaming with pride at the brilliant colors that flooded the sky. She knew she had conquered her fears, with the wind gently caressing her face and the sand beneath her feet. The ocean, once a source of terror, now served as a reminder of her resilience and strength. Jasmine's tale of bravery spread far and wide, capturing people's hearts worldwide. Her courage showed that determination and bravery can prevail even in adversity. Her unwavering spirit is a beacon of hope for those facing their battles, reminding them they can overcome everything. And so Jasmine's story lives on, inspiring generations to come with her tale of bravery. The young girl who fought off a shark, refusing to surrender, remains a symbol of resilience, courage, and a reminder that anyone can face any challenge and emerge stronger on the other side. School in Atlanta. They were so preoccupied with their profession that they couldn't attend extracurricular activities. So they took a vacation to Houston City for the Christmas break and enjoyed getting away from their busy life. It had been a while since they last took a vacation, so they were excited to experience the city's thriving culture and history. As they both set foot on the golden sands of Houston, they could feel the excitement building within them. After spending a few enjoyable days in Texas, Jack and Emily headed to the nearby coastal town to indulge in beachside relaxation. Their snorkeling adventure was about to begin, and they eagerly made their way toward the rental shop. With their snorkeling gear, they couldn't wait to dive into the crystal-clear waters and immerse themselves in the beauty of the ocean. Little did they know that this would be the start of an unforgettable journey. Jack and Emily waded into the sparkling azure waters of the ocean. The sun's rays danced on the surface, creating a mesmerizing display of light and shadows beneath the waves. They submerged themselves, entering a world teeming with vibrant marine life. Jack and Emily discovered a hidden cove as they explored the underwater realm. It was a secluded paradise, shielded by towering cliffs that seemed to rise from the ocean's depths. Intrigued by its mysterious allure, they ventured further into the cove, their hearts pounding with curiosity and anticipation. Suddenly, a gentle current pulled them deeper into the cove. They followed its lead, navigating through a labyrinth of coral reefs and colorful fish. As they swam further, they grew more captivated by the breathtaking scenery. It was as if they had stepped into a surreal dreamscape. But then, just as quickly as the current had appeared, it vanished. Jake and his wife found themselves in a vast open expanse of water with no visible path back to the shore. Panic set in, and they realized they were lost in this unknown ocean part. The only idea that came to their mind was to rise from the water to assess their situation and swim back ashore. As they try swimming upward, they glimpse an 8-foot-long shark charging at them. Jack and Emily's hearts raced with fear as the shark approached them in the cove. They had to act swiftly to ensure their survival. Jack and Emily instinctively dived deeper into the water, hoping to confuse the shark and buy themselves some time. By swimming downward, they aimed to minimize their visibility and create distance between themselves and the predator. But the shark followed them nevertheless. While on the run, they spotted an underwater cave. Jack and Emily swam towards it, seeking refuge from the shark. The cave's narrow entrance provided some protection, limiting the shark's ability to maneuver inside. Jack and Emily took a moment inside the cave to catch their breath and analyze the situation. They realized that staying in the cave was not viable, as they must find a way to escape and return to the surface. Jack proposed a plan to divert the shark's attention from the cave entrance. He would swim out and try to distract the predator so that Emily could swim to safety. Emily was at first against the idea, but Jack persuaded her that it was their only choice. He scurried noisily out of the cave. The shark chased after him, proving the success of his plan. Jack's adrenaline-fueled swim led him to escape the pursuing shark. He used his familiarity with the underwater landscape by navigating around coral reefs and other natural obstructions. While that happened, Emily swam safely to the shore and called the lifeguard in charge of the beach. The lifeguard, Maya, took with her a shark repellent and raced toward the water. Despite Jack's effort to safely reach the shore, the shark closed in on him and clamped onto his leg. He groaned and turned back to fight against the predator's powerful jaw. He desperately tried to free himself, but the shark gave him no chance as it shook him vigorously in the water. Jack was so severely shaken that he passed out, and the shark immediately began dragging him deeper into the ocean. Fortunately, Maya arrived there just as things were looking hopeless. As a professional lifeguard, Maya saw the commotion and immediately sprang into action. She maneuvered through the waves, determined to reach Jack and save him from the beast's jaw. Maya swam up to the shark and sprayed it with the repellent. The shark loosened its grip on Jack and instantly swam away very fast. After ensuring the shark had gone, Maya held unconscious Jack and swam toward the beach. While waiting for them, Emily was pacing back and forth nervously and trying to forecast what might happen to her husband. Immediately, she sighted Maya carrying Jack. She raced toward her and helped Maya with her husband. Jack was laid on the sand, and Emily performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. After a while, he coughed out water and was alive. He was later taken to the hospital for further treatment. Jack had learned a lesson the hard way, never to dare a shark. By the time he was discharged, he had gained a newfound appreciation, not for the ocean's beauty, but for its potential dangers. His ankle, which required 6 stitches after the bite, had been a focal point of his attention. He was particularly grateful to the lifeguard who did her work passionately, saving his life. The Houston community congratulated Maya, and the mayor compensated her. Even though Jack survived the attack, Emily made him swear off the water forever. She said there are different places to visit for vacation, and they aren't deadly as the ocean. Despite Jack's efforts, her views remained the same. Jack later accepted her that way since she was after his well-being. Kim Min-suk was a 22-year-old son of a Korean billionaire who tried his best to escape being conscripted into the army in 2005. His dad controlled 20% of South Korea's economy, so he thought escaping would be easy. However, the Constitution is above everyone, and he was caught with many other actors in his country faking illness. Through his dad's connection, he escaped imprisonment and enlisted in the army. That is the only way. He was to spend his time in the army, facing 18 months of hardships and rigorous training. Still, he had to endure it all because his dad promised him he could do whatever he wanted after that. After Kim was released from the army, he rented a yacht to party for a week. The yacht was on Jeju Island, so he flew with his friends. They hired strippers, cooks, and began their sail from the beach overlooking the Jeju Sea. They party hard into the evening before Kim goes onto the deck to watch the sunset while the waves crash toward the yacht. He sat with his friends, reminiscing about various incidents they had experienced in the army. Laughter filled the air as they shared stories and found humor in the challenges they had faced together. Kim's ultimate sanctuary lies within the waters. He would have loved being conscripted if he had been sent to the Navy, but he spent all his time at the front line. He believed the weather at the beach is the most quarreling of all places in the world. Within a moment he sat, relaxing lazily on the deck, allowing the foamy mist from the rampant ocean to spray on his face lightly, as though it was the touch of a feather. The sun begins to set in the distance in a sleepy, unhurried fashion. It was one of the most beautiful sights since being caged in the army. Then suddenly, the sky turned wild. Lightning hurls itself across what was once a tranquil heaven. Thunder booms while the atmosphere removes unwanted moisture. Kim let the rain drench him for a while before heading in. When coming on vacation, Kim hired an avid skier and snorkeler named June to teach him everything about skiing and snorkeling. After teaching him the basics on the deck, June entered the water with Kim for practice. After falling into the water several times, Kim could stand well on his skiing board. He started slowly and then began gaining speed. Being a fast learner, Kim quickly mastered the art of skiing and even challenged June to a race. Although June defeated him by a wide margin, he was incredible for someone who just started that day. He practiced a little bit before calling it a day. The next day he was up early with plans to master snorkeling as well. June was his instructor, and after donning the snorkeling gear, they dived into the icy water. Before entering the water, June told him that snorkeling is similar to swimming, but you will have a diving mask, a snorkel, and a swim fin. So he incorporated his swimming knowledge and got along quickly. After being underwater for a while, Kim raised his head coincidentally with June and told him he wanted to search for fresh abalone to give his mother as a present. They instruct the sailor to follow them while searching for the sea delicacy. The duo went underwater for 30 minutes looking for the creature. They even found a handful when the water atmosphere distorted. June, a meter ahead of Kim, became the victim of this ugly incident. A great white shark sunk its sharp teeth into his body. June felt something come down on his legs like a giant vice and then crushed his back and chest. Unable to shout underwater, he wiggled vigorously to call the attention of Kim, who became terrified. and instead of rushing forward to save his compatriot, he rose from the water. Meanwhile, the others on the yacht have been calling them for 10 minutes, but they couldn't hear underwater. One of the females on board noticed a dorsal fin gliding around the yacht. She just shrugged it off, knowing it could not harm the enormous yacht. Her countenance changed after she remembered June and Kim were underneath the water. She called on the rest, and they yelled out Kim and June's names to no avail. When Kim laterally raised his head, the sailor sailed over and was helped into the yacht. He kept panting while thinking about what had happened. Despite their fear, they were not courageous enough to enter the water and rescue June. They stood there, frozen in terror, helplessly watching the distressing scene unfold. June was well versed in his knowledge of sea creatures, so he knew he was bitten by a 12-foot white shark, which he couldn't fight off. After Kim escaped, the fearsome predator bit more forcefully into June and began shaking him violently. Instead of struggling to free himself, what June did next was astonishing. He suddenly went limp and played dead to the beast. It may be one of the worst decisions ever, but June had to take a risk. As a result, the shark carried him 16 feet into the sea before releasing him from its dagger-like jaw and swarming away. After staying limp for another 10 minutes, June looked around slowly to check if the beast was still lurking around. With no sign of the shark in the vicinity, he mustered the strength to swim upward. However, as he propelled himself through the water, waves of pain shot through his body from the sustained injury, causing him to silently groan. He was sighted from afar by the yacht, and they quickly sailed to him and dragged him out of the water. One of Kim's friends, a doctor based in Seoul, swiftly assessed his condition and discovered 20 tooth wounds spanning his chest. Urgently, the doctor stressed the need to reach a hospital without delay. The yacht's speed was pushed to its limits, and within a matter of minutes they successfully reached the shore. June was transported to a hospital in Jeju Island, receiving over 200 stitches to repair his gaping wound. Kim canceled his vacation to stay with him till he was discharged weeks after. Kim felt immense gratitude towards his friend for alerting him about the danger when he himself was the victim, providing him with the precious chance to escape unharmed. Kim's dad also appreciated June's effort in saving his son, and he was rewarded satisfyingly. The stitches remained on June's chest, but it was the genesis of his wealth, so he carried on with good spirit. In the picturesque coastal town of Havenport, life takes an extraordinary turn as a mysterious phenomenon unfolds. Like clockwork, every night at the stroke of midnight, enchanting melodies emanate from the ocean's depths. The hauntingly beautiful music drifts through the air, captivating the townsfolk with its ethereal sounds. And it could very well be angels singing. But really, where could the sweet sounds be emanating from? As whispers of an ancient legend resurface, weaving tales of a rare and mythical breed of singing sharks that have risen from the depths. The townsfolk are mesmerized by the notion that these aquatic creatures possess the ability to create an enchanting symphony using their unique vocal cords, given to them by nature itself. So much so, intrigue and curiosity have gripped everyone's hearts. Driven by a deep desire to witness the wondrous spectacle firsthand, a brave group of divers emerges from the community. These simple souls are determined to delve into the ocean's depths and unravel the mysteries that lie beneath. And if they succeed, it would be the first time that these subspecies of sharks have been documented for the sake of science. With their diving gear and hearts filled with excitement, they set out on an unforgettable journey. They make up a group of 5 divers in a mid-sized boat just off the beach at Haveport. 2 will carry underwater cameras, while the others will carry handheld sonar detectors. 1 more person will carry a spike to be used as a weapon in case they need one. They all jump into the cold water with the weight of expectation. As the divers descend into the enigmatic underwater realm, they are greeted by a vision of ethereal beauty. Vibrant coral reefs, schools of exotic fish, and the gentle sway of seaweed become the backdrop to their audacious quest. Yet unbeknownst to them, a foreboding presence lurks in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself for the sinister entity it represents. This is in stark contrast to what the divers are hoping to find on this adventure into the deep. The divers approach the location where the captivating melodies are said to originate. However, their expectant smiles quickly fade from their faces as they discover the truth. The singing sharks are not the benevolent creatures they were led to believe. In a cruel twist of fate, these majestic predators have embraced their dark instincts and become ruthless hunters, which usually lure unsuspecting prey with their alluring songs. In other words, this is the shark's way of drawing in potential prey. The first thing that crosses the minds of the divers is, where is a marine expert when you need one? This discovery also betrays that they are amateurs who impulsively decided to check out the singing shark phenomenon on a whim. And what was meant to be a quest for musical enlightenment is quickly transformed into a fight for survival. The divers now find themselves entangled in a deadly dance, desperately evading the razor-sharp teeth of the once enchanting singing sharks. Consequently, their courage and resourcefulness are now being put to the ultimate test as they dare to navigate the treacherous waters while seeking an escape from the jaws of the predatory symphony. They aren't even shark experts, to the point of having a basic knowledge of how to evade underwater predators. The person with the spike barely even knows about the shark nose trick, and the divers are outnumbered by a factor of 1. In the face of the imminent danger posed by the circling sharks, the divers now realize their only hope lies in working together. They must dig deep into their collective pool of sheer determination and strength to outsmart the cunning predators. The group must dare to form a united front against the mesmerizing menace lurking nearby. They have to think fast, and in that same vein, someone accidentally gets the idea to reverse the frequency on the handheld sonar devices. To everyone's surprise, it works like a charm because the sharks become disoriented. The frequency emanating from the devices jolted the shark's senses, similar to the unpleasant feeling of human fingers screeching across a classroom chalkboard. The sharks are easily and quickly dispersed. Fortunately, the divers have gotten it all on camera. As they safely emerge from the water, they couldn't help but feel incredibly grateful to be alive. Their story becomes a cautionary tale, never to allow oneself to be fooled by nature because, at its core, nature is not a respecter of its admirers. Sylvia Cooper and Mark Twain were always curious about new things. They always wanted to discover the world. They wanted to explore the skies and the oceans. It was their 10th anniversary on the 25th of July, 2005. The couple decided to go on a once-in-a-lifetime trip to the oceans. They registered for the trip with a famous ocean company. The company had taken 200-plus explorers down in the waters. Both of them were very excited. Obviously, they didn't know that their anniversary trip would turn into a race with the beasts. It was a beautiful morning, not because the weather was beautiful, but because the couple's excitement had created an exceptional environment. They had 5 other travelers with them for this wonderful expedition. It was an expedition for all other members, but a lifelong dream for Sylvia and Mark. They had lived for this moment. Mark seemed more excited because sea diving was his passion. He had trained her wife over these 10 years to see this day. Captain George was leading the crew. He guided them about the protective measures in case of an accident. After the preliminary drill, the shark descended into the water. Their trip was going as per expectations. They marveled at the captivating underwater inhabitants, observing the strange and fascinating creatures that dwelled beneath the water's surface. Mark tightly held his wife's hand, feeling the radiance of her happiness and joy. Sylvia was capturing those memorable moments. When they reached several feet down in the water, it got dark. They turned on the sub's headlights to get a proper view. All of them were calm and composed. They had special training on how to stay calm in case of any disaster. They were professional divers too, so darkness was not a problem. The sub continued to descend. Suddenly, a shadow appeared. It was a huge beet-like creature. They were not sure if it was a shark or a dolphin. If it was a dolphin, it was not a problem at all. Instead, they would have gotten a chance to make a friend in this strange habitat. But a shark was a problem. Sylvia's eyes widened in awe and trepidation as she leaned closer to the window. She caught sight of a massive shark, causing a slight tremor to run through her. Sensing her unease, Mark gently reassured her, emphasizing the magnificent nature of the great white shark they were witnessing. The shark glided against their sub, constantly staring at this queer thing in the water. It had probably never seen a metallic case. Sharks started circling the submarine. It didn't know whether it was something to eat or let go. All the crew members were captivated. They were not afraid of this encircling, but their point of view changed when the shark came into its attacking mode. Its gaze was filled with a mix of curiosity and anxiety. The expedition members felt deeply concerned as they observed the shark's behavior. Suddenly, the shark hit the sub, immersing one of its molars in the metallic casing. Mark and Sylvia jolted from their positions. They were in shock. Captain George immediately blared the alarms. The crew had lost all control and the sub was standing straight. It couldn't move because of the immersed molar. At that point, death seemed evident. Mark and Sylvia shuddered upon realizing their anniversary had turned into complete chaos. It was no longer a trip of joy. Rather, it was a journey to survival. There was a large hull in the submarine. Water started seeping in from the hull. They had no other choice but to dive in. The sub was damaged, and the engines couldn't work anymore. The only way to save their lives was to fight with the water. Mark consoled her wife and was motivated that she could do this. All of them initiated the emergency protocols and prepared themselves for the escape. The couple knew that their lives depended solely on their ability to navigate the water, and they had to do this at any cost. They had to do this for their kids and family. They had to do this for the research community and all those inquisitive people who dared to explore the wonders of nature. They were more persistent than terrified. They finally plunged into the water as instructed by Mr. George. They were diving into an unfamiliar world. The shark was just behind them. They had two rivals at the moment, the great beast and the high-pressure waves. Mr. George was leading the crew. All of them were rushing fast in the water like marine creatures. Sylvia and Mark were swimming with all their might. They were mentally exhausted, but they had to win this battle. They couldn't leave their bodies to decompose in the wilderness. After hours of swimming, they finally came out of the danger zone. The shark was invisible, and they could only see tiny water creatures. It was a moment of triumph. Mark held his wife's hand, and they started discovering the strange world under the water. They could feel the sun's rays dropping down. Marine life didn't seem bad without the beasts. Having survived the encounter with the shark, they felt a surge of gratitude and renewed appreciation for life. It was a reminder to seize the moment and create memories that a camera couldn't capture alone. These were the moments that would leave an indelible impression on their souls. Finally, they spotted a speck, and hope ignited in their hearts. It was a rescue boat. The boat had been searching for them since they had pressed the emergency button. The couple mustered up all their energy and propelled up on the surface towards the beacon of hope. The rescue team had warm blankets and the first aid material. Despite their injuries, the couple's adventurous spirit persisted. Their anniversary trip was unforgettable, leaving a lasting impression on their hearts. As they looked back on their anniversary trip, they realized that even in the darkest moments, the power of love and determination could overcome even the most formidable challenges. Alejandro Matias was a 19-year-old Peruvian who just concluded his entrance exams at a Peruvian university. His father, Diego, has promised him a trip to Lima Beach with his fisherman, Uncle Jose, if he gains admission into the university. Lima Beach has a lot of swamp areas, so many of the populace are fishermen or fish sellers. Jose was also widely recognized as a popular fisherman in the area due to his impressive catches. Matias admired his uncle and aspired to follow in his footsteps, hoping to become a skilled fisherman like him. His father, Diego, aware of the dangers associated with water, disapproved of exposing him to such risks. Diego sent him to a boarding school in Bogotá, Colombia, to ensure his safety, away from both water and his uncle. Fortunately, Matias gained admission to the best university in Peru to study veterinary medicine. Now his father believes he is old enough to protect himself from any danger, land or water. He drove him to the swamp area of Lima after calling his brother about the visit. Jose eagerly awaited their arrival at the swamp. Upon seeing his nephew, whom he had last seen when the boy was 12, he embraced him warmly. After Diego dropped him off, he drove away, leaving Matias to join Jose on his boat. They embarked on the fishing adventure, a tradition Jose loved as it would allow him to bond with his nephew while surrounded by the beauty of nature. They sail to a point in the river before Jose casts his net after spraying bait into the water. Minutes later, he pulled at the net, which had become heavy. Matias quickly approached him, and they pulled the fishing net into the boat together. That was enough for the day. While sailing back to the shore, Jose promised Matias deep-sea fishing the next day. They will be visiting the big ocean and catching fresh sea fish. Matias was very happy and always looked up to Jose, who had a wealth of experience in fishing techniques, secret spots, and various species of sea creatures. So the next day they arrived at the picturesque Lima Beach, with its air filled with excitement and anticipation. The sun shone on the ocean's surface, embracing nature's serenity. Matias carried their fishing gear from the car and followed Jose to a fishing shop at the beach. They wanted to rent a fishing boat for deep-sea fishing. Matias grabbed their fishing gear from the car and followed Jose to a fishing shop located on the beach. They wanted to rent a fishing boat for deep-sea fishing. After renting the boat, they ventured into the water. They sailed for a while before stopping the boat's engine and setting their rod with baits laden, patiently waiting for fish. Jose had shared some of his knowledge and expertise with Matias. He taught him how to handle the rod, tie knots, and choose good baits. With fishing rods on hand, Matias and Jose settled on the boat overlooking the calm water. While waiting, Jose shared his knowledge and various fishing trip story with Matias, with his eyes sparkling with wonder and admiration. Hours drifted by effortlessly with the rhythmic sound of the water lapping at the boat. After a while, Jose's bait caught a fish which he quickly pulled up. Seconds to that, Matias also caught a huge bluefin tuna. His face lit up with sheer joy as the shimmering fish wriggled, trying to free itself from the hook. He held his prized gift in his hand, feeling the weight of his good catch. Jose couldn't be more proud. He congratulated and even got a picture of him holding it. Afterward, they returned to the water and cast their fishing rods again, hoping to catch another. Jose asked Matias about the school, and the teen narrated what happened in his school in Colombia. What happened next was unfortunate. A sudden, unexpected tug pulled Matias into the water. Despite resisting and pulling himself back up, the force overwhelmed him, and he was dragged into the water. Jose was baffled because they were even in the middle of another conversation when it happened. After recovering from the shock, he jumped into the water to keep his nephew from disappearing. Being an experienced fisherman, Jose deduced that a shark had attacked Matias. Although he had brought an arrow with him that he could have used to retaliate, Jose hesitated, not wanting to make a decision he might later regret. The arrow might pierce his nephew, worsening the matter, so he had to jump into the water with them. Matias flings his arms frantically, trying to hold on to something to stop him, but the shark keeps dragging him away. He then tries using his elbow to nudge the shark off him, making him hit the beast's nose. He could maneuver flexibly like this because the shark held onto his leg. Immediately, the shark stopped to gnash into Matias's leg, and Jose caught up with him. Grabbing hold of Matias's clothing, he swam towards the shark's most vulnerable area, its gills, and struck it with force. The shark wiggled violently, but Jose didn't stop hitting the spot. The shark released its grip on Matias, allowing him to navigate from its jaw. The shark seemed in pain from the strikes as it swam away quickly. Jose held Matias by his arm and swam toward the boat. He applied an antiseptic on the bite before sailing back to the shore. With blood dripping and a sense of urgency, Jose once again lifted Matias and rushed him to his van. He drove them to the hospital without wasting time to ensure Matias received the necessary and timely medical treatment. After receiving 10 stitches on his ankle, Matias got discharged on the third day. Although he felt a little bit of discomfort because of the stitches, he felt a sense of relief that the injury was treated on time. He is also grateful to his uncle for his timely intervention. However, Diego's response was far from grateful. When Jose called to inform him about the incident, Diego angrily shouted at him and rushed to the hospital in a panic. He placed the blame squarely on his brother for exposing his son to danger. From that point on, Diego made it a point to ensure his son never visited the water again, let alone engage in fishing activities. In the beautiful coastal town of Playa del Carmen, Mexico, a 10-year-old Colorado boy named Ethan embarked on a fateful spring break trip with his family. Excitement filled the air as they arrived at the pristine beach, ready to enjoy a week of sun, sand, and surf. Ethan and his younger brother Noah wasted no time venturing into the crystal-clear waters that stretched before them. With giggles of joy and mischievous grins, they dashed into the knee-deep water, splashing and frolicking as waves caressed their tiny legs. Little did Ethan know that this blissful day would soon transform into a terrifying ordeal that would test his strength, resilience, and the boundless love of his family. Amongst the tumultuous waters, Ethan was thrown off balance by the sheer force of the fierce wave, his senses jolted by the impact. Helplessly, he stumbled, his body battered by the ferocity of the ocean's fury. Disoriented and gasping for breath, his heart pounded in his chest as he felt a searing pain pierce through his leg, instantly freezing him in terror. Time seemed to stand still as Ethan's mind registered the horrifying truth. He had become the target of a shark's relentless aggression. Fear coursed through his veins, threatening to paralyze him completely. But deep within his core, a primal survival instinct took hold. Summoning every ounce of strength and resilience, he mustered the courage to fight against the unforgiving predator that had chosen him as its prey. Ethan's body surged forward, desperate to break free from the razor-sharp jaws that held him captive. His mind became a whirlwind of determination, his every fiber dedicated to escaping the clutches of the fearsome adversary. Pain mingled with fear as he battled against the powerful grip, amplifying his resolve to overcome this life-threatening ordeal. Ethan struggled to free himself from the shark's grip for what felt like an eternity, but eventually he succeeded. The taste of victory mingled with the salt water on his lips as he gasped for air, gasping for the breath that had nearly been stolen from him. Disoriented and trembling, he mustered the strength to stagger back toward the safety of the shore. Sensing his distress, his family rushed to his side, their faces pale with shock and concern. A frantic search for medical aid ensued as they desperately sought help for their injured son. Emergency responders arrived swiftly, providing immediate medical attention to Ethan's gravely injured leg. The young boy's leg bore the devastating marks of the shark's assault: 2 broken bones, extensive nerve damage, and a spirit shaken to its core. Ethan was immediately transported to a local hospital, where dedicated doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to stabilize his condition. The road to recovery appeared daunting, but Ethan's unyielding spirit and unwavering support from his family became the guiding light that fueled their collective determination to overcome this severe setback. Ethan underwent numerous surgeries and grueling physical therapy sessions. His family stood by his side throughout, providing unwavering love and encouragement, even when moments of doubt threatened to shroud their hopes. Amidst the pain and challenges, Ethan's resilience began to shine. With each small step he took, his spirit grew more robust, his determination unshakable. The medical team marveled at his progress, witnessing a young boy who refused to let the shark's attack define him. Months passed, and Ethan's journey toward healing continued. He became an inspiration not just to his family but to the entire community. News of his extraordinary courage spread far and wide, igniting a wave of support and encouragement from strangers across the globe. Through the tireless efforts of his medical team, Ethan's leg began to regain strength. His bones slowly knitted back together, and his damaged nerves showed signs of regeneration. Hope blossomed, as did the belief that Ethan would walk again one day. With unwavering dedication and countless hours of therapy, Ethan's determination reached new heights. He embraced each session with boundless energy, knowing his efforts would bring him closer to his ultimate goal. His family cheered him on, their hearts brimming with pride at his remarkable progress. As the day approached when Ethan would take his first steps, anticipation filled the air. The medical team and his family stood beside him, offering support as he tentatively placed one foot in front of the other. The room fell silent as Ethan summoned his inner strength, his eyes focused on the horizon. And then, with a surge of triumphant energy, Ethan took his first steps, defying the odds and proving that resilience can conquer even the most devastating setbacks. The room erupted in jubilant applause and tears of joy, the echoes of victory resonating within the hearts of all present. Ethan's journey towards recovery continues, his spirit forever intertwined with the fierce determination that carried him through the darkest days. His story is a testament to the power of love, resilience, and indomitable spirit. As Ethan walks hand in hand with his family along the shore, his laughter blending with the gentle crashing of waves, he gazes out into the vast expanse of the ocean. At that moment, he realizes that he has not only conquered the waves, but has also discovered the strength within himself to overcome any challenges that lie ahead. The Coombs family, consisting of the father, Adams, the mother, Evelyn, and their two children, Av and Peter, could not find the time to visit the city's popular tourist attraction, the beach. Peter, being a boy, yearns to try surfing on the water, but his parents won't allow him to go alone. He has no choice but to pray for such a day the whole family will go. Fortunately, in the summer of 2007, Adams was promoted, and he also succeeded in buying a permanent family home. With these tangible accomplishments, Adams suggests they celebrate it by visiting the beach during the weekend. 15-year-old Peter couldn't stop counting the days. He was very glad about the development. They planned to go on Sunday. So on Friday, Adam took some time off work so that he and Evelyn could go to the grocery store and get everything they would need for the beach trip. They bought many things for the family day, such as snacks, refreshments, meat, etc. On D-Day, Evelyn was busy cooking while her children helped pack the refreshments in a large cooler box with ice. Once the food was prepared, they carefully placed it in a large box with plates, a spoon, and a fork. They packed everything into their family vehicle, and within minutes, they were en route to the beach. The seawater shimmered under the warm sun, its beautiful blue hue captivating the eye. As they arrived, they noticed a few people scattered along the beach. Some played beach football while a few kids were building sand castles. There were also people swimming in the clear water, enjoying the cold feeling of the ocean. Immediately, they alighted from the vehicle. Peter was very excited to go straight into the water, which had noticed and told him that it was lunch first, and then he could swim all day. The food was incredibly delicious. It was an amazing meal of chicken, egg salad, and shepherd's pie. After eating, they washed it down with cold juice. After lunch, they relaxed under a huge umbrella before Adams declared it was a fun time. They all rushed into the seawater and dived in. The water was cool and wonderful, so Peter kept enjoying it. After a brief time in the water, Adams decided to swim back to shore, followed closely by Evelyn. On the other hand, Peter and Av continued surfing the water. With young blood in him, Peter challenged Av to a swimming competition, which she agreed upon. Peter glided through the water like oil, leaving Av behind. But he didn't know he had entered a banned surfing destination. Satisfied that he won the race, Peter chased the big waves, circling the water. After some hours, he became tired and began swimming back ashore. However, the distance was significant, with him being approximately 150 yards from the shoreline. Little did he know that an 8-foot-long tiger shark was lurking behind, poised for an attack. Before he could react, his blood stained the water, creating an eerie watercolor scene that sealed his fate. He gave out a desperate cry for help. His frantic yell caught Ave's attention. As she turned her gaze toward the water, she witnessed a stark change in its color. She quickly called on her father, who rushed into the water to save his son. Ave scampered ashore and ran to her mother's embrace as she was visibly shaken. The beast attacked Peter's left thigh and calf and lacerated him fiercely. He first experienced the stinging pain, so he pulled his leg to see what happened. But he couldn't pull it easily while the pain intensified. After he succeeded in changing his position, he saw the aggressive predator, and by that time his blood was flowing out. While screaming for help, Peter tried fighting off the shark as it mauled his leg. His dad caught up with him and held onto him while he kicked the predator. He kicked hard at it while Peter punched it with his power while groaning in pain. The pair kicked and punched for a while, but the shark didn't let go. Peter's hands were bleeding and mixed with sand, but his hopes were still intact, giving him the adrenaline to continue. After kicking for a while, Adams tried to pry open the shark's mouth so that his son could be free, but his hand got scratched without him being successful. He began punching at every part of the shark's head. His punch at the gill affected the beast, and it released its grip on Peter. Adam pulled at his son and dragged him out of the shark's jaw. Peter's flesh was tangled with the predator's teeth, making him scream painfully as his dad pulled. Fortunately for them, Evelyn called lifeguards who came with 2 boats, one to rescue them and drive ashore, while the other chased at the shark. Peter was quickly rushed into a waiting ambulance circled by tourists. While being transported to the hospital, Peter was pleading in pain, "God, Jesus, don't let me die." Peter underwent surgery because of the vicious wounds on his leg. The shark bite was very deep, affecting his muscles and vessels, which made his family concerned about his predicament. Apart from the surgery, he got 10 stitches on his hand as teeth scrapes were found from the shark's attempt to chew it. Adam's hand, battered from his valiant attempt to strike the creature, was also tended to and administered medical attention. He didn't even mind his injury, but prayed for his son's recovery, as the doctor said Peter could have died any longer. Adams had no choice but to report back to work, so Evelyn and Abe stayed with him till he was better. All his middle school classmates also visited him on his hospital bed with gifts and get-well-soon cards. After 3 months in the hospital bed, Peter was given crutches to aid his walking. In addition to his physical injury, Peter was assigned to a rehabilitation facility to aid in the restoration of his leg's normal function. Being a resilient and strong-willed child, the emotional impact of the attack did not significantly affect him. Other than the physical injury, he was doing well. He said he wouldn't stop swimming at the beach because of the attack, but probably wouldn't venture out as far again. A team of intrepid deep-sea explorers, led by renowned marine biologist Dr. Samantha Reynolds, embarked on a groundbreaking mission to explore certain uncharted underwater caves in the Caribbean. Armed with cutting-edge technology, they set their sights on the mysterious abyss beneath the ocean surface. Perhaps this was the fabled lost city of Atlantis. They reckoned they might even encounter an underwater civilization of mermaids. Everyone would laugh out loud at this joke. They boarded the boat in Cuba that would take them there. Their captain was an old, reliable man on the verge of retirement. He hoped this would be his last trip, which had more to do with his take-home pay. It was the biggest he had ever collected, as this was a scientific expedition sponsored by a university benefactor. They sailed for 2 days before getting to the shores of the Bahamas. Just off the coast was an isolated atoll. Suffice it to say, an atoll is a ring-shaped island with a body of water in its center. One can trust that it's a rare and beautiful sight to behold. Once they landed there, they proceeded to unpack their gear. They suited up in preparation for a deep dive. Once they had checked off the safety parameters, they jumped into the water. There were 4 of them in the water, while Dr. Samantha and another assistant were on the surface, monitoring the data and the footage. The captain stayed on the ship and remained on standby. As the team descended into the depths, the true magnitude of their mission became much more apparent. They swam for a while as the underwater caves eventually revealed a mesmerizing labyrinth of intricate tunnels. For them, it all amounted to an intriguing network waiting to be explored. Their underwater mapping was right all along, and these were indeed hidden and hollow passages deep in this part of the Caribbean Sea. Their excitement at the findings filled the air as they ventured deeper, oblivious to any ancient force that might be lurking within. Unbeknownst to the explorers, they had just now intruded upon the domain of an ancient and highly territorial shark species. The disturbance occasioned by the presence of the divers triggered a chain of events that would awaken these guardians of the deep. Fueled by instinct, the sharks began their relentless pursuit of the intruders, thus transforming the underwater labyrinth into a hunting ground where a deadly game of survival was at play. This turn of events had completely surprised the divers, and they hadn't anticipated any dangers or been prepared for them. On the surface, Dr. Samantha became extremely anxious but kept the lines of communication going for what it was worth. Now more or less trapped within the treacherous shark labyrinth, the team found themselves in a race against time. The contraption delivering much-needed oxygen to their bodies was some cutting-edge tech that didn't require an external canister, but even that could give in at some point if they were not careful. It depended on the surrounding water being free from debris. It also required that they swim slowly, which was becoming increasingly difficult with the sharks on their tail. As of the last count, 5 sharks had locked onto them and were bent on having them for brunch. With their limited resources and being surrounded by cunning predators, they had no other options. They were now more than ever damned to rely on their wits, resilience, and deep-sea expertise to outmaneuver the sharks and escape the ever-narrowing passages. Amidst the chaos, an unexpected alliance emerged. While on the run in a desperate bid to find an exit, if they could get past the marauding sharks, the team discovered an injured killer whale, which was separated from its kin. It had probably come into contact with a stingray by accident, so it was rooted on the spot until the divers found it. Recognizing their opportunity, they attempted to forge a fragile bond of trust with the killer whale. With Dr. Samantha in their ear, they nursed the orca back to health, and in return, it acknowledged them and their predicament. Killer whales, like dolphins, are known to be friendly to humans. On the other hand, they were known to prey on sharks. So the setup was a fortunate coincidence. The killer whale became their guide out of the caves and their protector. No shark dared attack them now as they proceeded to swim to safety, but you can trust the sharks to fancy their chances. Undoubtedly, the orca was outnumbered 1-5, but it bravely fought to protect the divers and had raw strength. Occasionally, the divers helped by knocking on the sharks' noses when they came too close. Ultimately, everyone got away as they closed in on the surface. With the little strength and resolve they had left being tested to the limit, the team reached a critical juncture. The sharks had followed them all the way up, and if they weren't careful, they might turn their attention to the killer whale as their consolation prize. It helped that the orca was half mammal, so Dr. Samantha and her team decided to adopt it in the interim. They borrowed an improvised tank from the ship where the orca would be allowed to stall until the shark's danger disappeared. They were simply returning the favor. After a few hours, the danger passed, and they released the killer whale back into the water and returned to civilization. Against all odds, the team emerged from the labyrinth of sharks, battered but triumphant, and they would forever remain changed by their harrowing experience. Just as well, it was a story they could certainly tell their grandchildren. Edwin always wanted to make history in everything, especially his academic pursuit. He was the first person in his municipality, Bergijk, to get a scholarship to the university in Amsterdam, and also the youngest to be admitted to the university. At 23 years old, he had completed his doctorate as a marine biologist, but he was yet to be conferred a professorship which he yearned for so much. To expedite his progress, his university professor advised him to engage in research activities to enhance his knowledge. Furthermore, the professor suggested selecting a nearby city for his research to minimize stress and alleviate any associated challenges. Instead of exploring the Hague Beach and other numerous beaches in the Netherlands, Edwin traveled to the South American country of Suriname to conduct his research. He believed the waters in the Netherlands had been explored many times, whereas the waters in Suriname remained relatively uncharted and rarely ventured into. On June 13, 1990, Edwin took a 10.5-hour flight from Amsterdam to Paramaribo to conduct his research. On getting there, he lodged in a hotel and set out to learn about the town's culture. Wanting to gain the trust of the locals, he immersed himself in their local culture, connected with the community, and learned from their deep-rooted knowledge of the sea. The warm-hearted locals welcomed him with open arms, shared their stories and traditions, and even took him swimming in the lake with wild dolphins. However, Edwin knew he didn't come from the Netherlands to Suriname to explore lakes or play with dolphins. Those were abundant in his country. He came to do something extraordinary, which was to explore the ocean and its deep-sea creatures. Edwin explored the sea the next day, armed with his research equipment and eagerness to study and document the unique ecosystem. Edwin watched as he approached the water's edge, and the waves rhythmically crashed against the shore. The sound of the crashing waves filled his ears as he closed his eyes, feeling nature unfold before him. On opening his eyes, Edwin marveled at the vastness of the beach and ocean that stretched before him. Beaches in the Netherlands had been explored multiple times and turned into market hubs, but nature was still intact here. After marveling at nature, he set out to do what he came for, venturing into the ocean's depths that held various mysteries. After gearing up, he waded into the water, feeling its cool embrace wrap around his ankles, calves, and entire body. He would have been shivering without the swimsuit, which worked wonders for him. He immersed himself in the challenging and awe-inspiring world underneath the waves and continued exploring with ease. However, fate turned unexpectedly when Lucas found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. The serene ocean began to change. Dark clouds loomed overhead, and a distant rumble signaled the approach of a storm. Edwin tried to rise from the water and swim to the shore, but the waves became so strong that he couldn't glide. Edwin fought to regain control, with the powerful current threatening to sweep him away. After some minutes of fighting against the ocean current, the storm died. Edwin heaved a sigh of relief and began swimming toward the beach, planning to return the next day, presumably with a local. However, he didn't know that he had become the target of a ferocious bull shark, resulting in a sudden and terrifying attack. The 10-foot-long shark clamped its razor-sharp teeth around his leg. He cried, but no one could hear him since no one was at the beach. In a desperate struggle for survival, Edwin summoned extraordinary courage and presence of mind. With acute pain sweeping over his body, he used every ounce of strength to fight against the powerful beast, using his marine knowledge to target its vulnerable spots. He continued hitting the shark's gill while the shark continued to bite. After a while, the shark released its grip, and Edwin managed to free himself with blood all over his left leg. He had freed himself from the shark, but the shore was still far away. With the threat of the shark coming after him, Edwin embarked on an arduous journey back to the shore, battling through exhaustion and waves which increased his pain with every surge. Throughout his journey back to the shore, Edwin's determination was fueled by memories of his family and loved ones, and his will to survive. Upon reaching the shore, he limped far from the shoreline and fell in pain. He groaned loudly to alert anyone nearby because he was completely spent and suffering from excessive blood loss, which could lead to death. Fortunately, a fisherman who had gone fishing on the far side of the ocean and was packing his fish onto his tricycle heard the groan. After contemplating, the man summoned courage and drove his machine over. Upon arriving, he quickly descended, carried Edwin on the fish in the cargo compartment, and drove him to the nearest hospital. He spent a week at the hospital nursing his injuries, but fearing he may not receive adequate health care in the developing country, he canceled his stay visa and traveled back to the Netherlands. He got admitted to a hospital in Amsterdam where he received adequate treatment. A week after admission, he was discharged with crutches to aid his walking. Edwin was also placed on a rehabilitation schedule that worked well and could walk after a month. Edwin was plagued by fear and a sense of injustice as he recovered from his physical injuries. While struggling to survive the shark attack back in Suriname, he had even cursed himself in marine biology as a profession, saying he would never venture into the sea nor practice the profession again. However, his desire and curiosity to study the behavior, patterns, and ecological significance sea creatures hold in maintaining a healthy marine ecosystem pushed him back into his research. He completed it successfully in his country without any mishaps. Edwin now finds solace in narrating his story to his students during lectures. Nowadays, most beaches have barricades that weren't there before the 1980s. But an incident changed everything. Luis Escobar was a 60-year-old carpenter who lived all his life in Medellin, Colombia. Luis was hardworking, but spent most of his earnings on partying and drinking, without caring for his family. His irresponsibility made his wife divorce him years back, but Luis didn't mind as he could enjoy his life. On a summer evening in 1981, Luis was invited to a beach party with his best friend, Ricardo Rodriguez. There, he partied hard and drank alcohol and gin till the next morning. Early in the morning, around 7 a.m., Luis was completely drunk and wanted to urinate. The clubhouse had no restroom, so he went to the beach to relieve himself, drunkenly navigating his way through the sandy beach toward the shoreline. Luis was wearing only shorts, so he entered knee-deep into the ocean, overlooking the vast water wearily. Despite signs warning people to stay out of the ocean, Luis ventured in. The lifeguard on duty was also unable to restrain him as Luis was only knee-deep in the water. Lost in his world of drunkenness, Luis stumbled into the water, whistling and swaying to maintain his balance. He found what he believed to be a good spot in the sea and ignored the crashing waves as he attended to his urgent need. Due to his intoxication, he has forgotten that the beach is shark-infested. Even the authorities have warned beachgoers to venture into the water. Immediately, he finished his business and tried to zip his shorts. A huge tiger shark burst out of the water and snapped its sharp teeth on his left hand. This shark has been gliding underneath the water silently, with its large, shadowy figure enough to be seen by someone in a normal state. But Louise just whistled on while swaying from left to right. However, as the 8-foot tiger shark sank its teeth into him, his whistling and drunken laughter instantly transformed into terrified screams, catching the lifeguard's attention. In a panic, he clumsily attempted to free himself from the shark's grip. Still, his intoxicated state denied him the ability to do so quickly. Within a moment, the shark's razor-sharp teeth tore further into his flesh, severing his hand. Agony surged through his intoxicated body as he let out a piercing scream of acute pain. Meanwhile, Ricardo was waiting for his return from the beach, and after some minutes he set out to get him. They must return to the city and prepare for work that day. Immediately he came out of the club, bubbling with loud music. Louise rendered a horrified scream, making scanty tourists on the beach rush him. Ricardo also raced towards him, trying to figure out what could have happened to his friend. Before they could reach the water, the shark launched another attack, clamping its teeth onto his leg. By this time, he had sobered up as he let out another cry. The lifeguard named Andre got to the spot and entered the water. While the shark was preoccupied with Louise, Andre searched for a vulnerable spot and hit powerful consecutive blows to the shark. After taking a chunk out of his leg, the shark lost its grip on Louise and swiftly changed direction. With the waves relentlessly crashing against the shoreline, Louise and Andre were drenched. Once they were certain that the shark had swum away, Andre attempted to assist Louise out of the water, but struggled due to Louise's weight exceeding 180 pounds. So he called on the onlookers, with Ricardo joining to assist him in carrying his friend. With his training and experience, Andre swiftly assessed the situation and called for immediate medical assistance. Using a tourniquet, he applied pressure to Louise's severed hand, trying to stop his blood flow and keep him stable till help arrived. Louise just lay on the sandy beach in pain and shock. He couldn't believe what had happened to him. Even if he survives the terrible ordeal, he won't be able to do his profession again, as he would have only a hand left. Tears trickled down his face as all this revelation doomed him. Andre did his best to assure him that there was still hope and that he wasn't alone in the struggle. This still gave him a small glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. After about 30 minutes, the ambulance arrived. If Andre hadn't maintained pressure on Louise's injured limb, Louise could have succumbed to shock and potentially lost his life. He was further attended to by the paramedics with utmost urgency before he was transported to the hospital. Being a popular Medellin local for his craft, the news about his attack spread like wildfire. Even his divorced wife heard of it and was happy and sad about his predicament. On getting to the hospital, he was transferred to the theater to prevent infection on his cut-off limb and seal off his blood vessels and nerves. His muscles were also cut and shaped to allow a prosthetic arm to be attached. Louise received numerous stitches on his gashed leg. Louise spent over a month before he was discharged from the hospital. He now got a new prosthesis in place of his hand. Courtesy of a petition signed in favor of him, the authority placed Louise on a monthly salary as the shark attack had rendered him handicapped. The petition stated that anyone who got disabled from a shark attack would be liable to a reward from the authority in charge of the sea. He now got paid monthly into his account. Still, Louise has learned a remarkable lesson the hard way. Now, sobered by the life and death experiences, he summoned courage and looked towards his challenging road to recovery. Despite the physical and emotional scars, Louise didn't let it get into him and carried it around gracefully. After his recovery, Louise launched an NGO to raise awareness of the danger of excessive drinking. He now found solace in sharing his story with schools and local communities. Through his determination, he inspired others about the consequences of excessive drinking and encouraged other drinkers to make better choices and appreciate their life. Bruno and Guimarães were two sophomore students at a university in Portugal. Like many other students, they were tied down with assignments, group works, projects, etc. One day, they decided to take a break from their always demanding study and have fun without spending much. What would they do? A thought came to Bruno's mind that they should go to Lisbon Beach and have fun. He told Guimarães that he had been learning to ski from his brother at a local pool, so he wanted to try it on the vast water. They boarded a cab to the always bubbling ocean of Lisbon. Being natives of Lisbon, Bruno knew their way around the beach as they had visited many times. On the other hand, Guimarães, a Brazilian studying in Portugal, was unfamiliar with the country's stunning beaches. Excitement filled the air as Guimarães and Bruno arrived at the beach. The sun was shining gloriously, and the rhythmic crashing of waves called out to them. They believed it was going to be an adventure-filled day. Upon reaching the beach, they went to a rental booth, where they rented a pair of skis and a motorboat. While walking towards the shoreline, Guimarães noticed a group of experienced water skiers preparing their equipment for a thrilling water skiing adventure. The curiosity of competing against the best got into Bruno, and they went towards them. Approaching them, Bruno asked permission to join on their exhilarating adventure, which they allowed. The group also shared the necessary skiing knowledge with Bruno. Grateful for the guidance, Bruno and Guimarães quickly geared up, strapped on their life jackets and set with their water skis. Bruno and Guimarães took their positions on the skis, eagerly awaiting the moment they would be propelled across the water's surface. Immediately, the motorboat accelerated. They clung tightly to the tow rope and plunged forward, feeling the powerful force of water underneath their skis. Being somewhat of rookies, they were left far behind in the first lap of the race. The other competitors had already crossed the finish line while they were still in the midst of their race. However, they grew more confident with each passing moment. Guimarães wasn't interested in the race, but in how the water felt on his body. The wind whipped through his hair and the salty mist kissed his face as he navigated the waves. He shared laughter with his friend, their spirits lifted by the adrenaline rush and the sheer thrill of their activity. As they carved through the water, they felt a sense of freedom, having escaped the demands of academic pursuits. Unlike the other skiers who had returned to the shore, Bruno and Guimarães remained on the water. They still enjoyed skiing through the water and cheering out loud. Meanwhile, a shark was lurking around the area, but they didn't notice because they were busy having fun. Before they knew it, the shark forcefully rammed into Bruno's ski board, and he lost the tow rope. Baffled about what could have happened, the white shark sank its teeth into his arm and he screamed. Guimarães was alerted by the scream, so he decelerated his towboat and led it back to his friend to check on what could have happened. Approaching Bruno, he saw the huge shark clamping onto his arm. Despite the immense pain, Bruno's quick thinking allowed him to use his free hand to hit the shark's sensitive snout, causing it to release its grip. However, before he could fully recover from the attack, another shark sensed the commotion and joined the chaotic frenzy, sinking its sharp teeth into Bruno's leg. Bruno's heart was pounding in his chest as adrenaline rushed through his veins. He fought back with all his might, throwing blows and strikes at the shark, but none of it made the predator back out. Guimarães was afraid as he saw another shark join the struggle, so he quickly maneuvered his towboat to hit the shark at its vulnerable spot. The shark retreated and swam away. The duo thought the battle had ended, but it was a lie. Guimarães looked on and saw another shark gliding toward them. He told Bruno to swim ashore while he scared the beast away. He charged his towboat toward the predator while Bruno painfully swam ashore with blood dripping from the bite. Bruno knew sharks were attracted to blood, so he didn't want to slow down despite being extremely spent. Guimarães showed bravery by charging toward the shark. He wasn't an expert in skiing, but the situation had instilled an extraordinary sense of responsibility in him, which made him maneuver the water expertly. He had a broken part of Bruno's ski with him, which he had picked up after the second shark retreated. He planned on using it to kill the shark if possible. He couldn't let the predator attack his friend once again. A meter into colliding with the predator, he maneuvered the towboat to the right and held out the sharp edge of the broken ski, which tore through the shark's side. He then changed his direction and sped off toward the shore. The shark was injured, so Guimarães knew it couldn't charge after him. Still, he didn't stop until he reached the shore. By the time he got out of the water, Bruno had been transported to the hospital to treat his wounds. He also went to the hospital to treat himself for minor injuries and stress from the water brawl. News about his dangerous but praiseworthy exploit with the shark spread around the city. The authorities lauded Guimarães for his courage against the huge predator, and he was granted citizenship of Portugal by nationalization, which is usually considered after 5 years. Bruno had over 20 bites from the predator from which he was treated. After a week, he was discharged and returned to the university with his friend Guimarães. They returned to tough academic work, but Bruno was grateful he could return. He was particularly grateful to Guimarães for his act of bravery. Months after the incident, they did exams and moved to their third year at the university. With one more year to go, Bruno and Guimares's friendship grew tighter. Jordan Stoke was an avid swimmer who had competed several times for his home country, Ireland. He even won the silver medal at the concluded 1954 International Swimming Championships. He had discovered his joy for gliding through water early, so he propelled himself to hone his skills and dedicated himself to training, which made his talent evident. Stoke began participating in local swimming competitions as he grew older, consistently dominating his age group. He caught the attention of renowned swimming coaches who recognized his great potential and guided him toward refining his technique and developing endurance. All the training paid off when Stoke made it to the world stage and won the silver medal on his first try. The crowd erupted into applause, acknowledging his remarkable achievement. Although he narrowly missed the gold, Stoke promised to deliver the coveted medal in the next competition. His coach was also happy with his dedication, sacrifice, and determination, so he gave Stoke a free vacation with all costs borne by him. Stoke boarded a ferry going to his vacation island, Isle of Man. The island is a perfect place for vacation. It offers a diverse coastline with picturesque beaches and stunning waters. The beaches provide a range of tourist options, the sandy stretch or the rocky coves. Its water is also clean, making it a perfect place for Stoke. As Stoke arrived at the beach, tranquility washed over him. The beach appeared serene and untouched, with soft sand stretching before him. Ireland has several beaches, but none have the pristine beauty of those on the Isle of Man. Despite his coach's warning not to venture into the open water, Stoke was eager to embrace the water. He quickly changed into his swimwear and waded into the refreshing ocean. The water enveloped him, cooling his skin from the warm sun. He could feel the difference of the natural water from swimming pools. With each stroke, he felt the world's weight slipping away, replaced by a sense of connection with nature. The beach became more peaceful as he swam further from the coast, and the bustling of everyday life at the beach gradually receded into the distance. Stoke reveled in the solitude, relishing the chance to immerse himself in the peacefulness of the surroundings. Once in a while he dove into the water, marveling at the underwater world and creatures. Snatches of vivid corals and darting fish always attracted his eyes. The water gave him revitalizing breaths of the salty air. Stoke floated with his back to the water, watching seagulls soar in the golden light of the setting sun. He was enjoying this view when tragedy struck. The tranquility of the water was abruptly shattered when a monstrous shark emerged from the depths and gnashed onto Stoke's leg. He screamed, but no one was nearby to hear him. He knew he had to free himself from the jaw of the predator. Despite the bite inflicting a grievous wound on his leg, Stoke remained undeterred by the excruciating pain. His survival instincts kicked into high gear, flinging his hand frantically to hold something. His hand held on to the shark's gill and he dug into it. However, the shark seemed relentless as it shook him violently before releasing its grip. Stoke swims frantically out of the predator's jaw and moves upward toward the shore. However, the shark was not finished with him yet. Stoke's determination to survive was evident in the way he swam towards the shore despite being in pain. He didn't rest for a second, fearing the shark might be coming after him. His entire swimming career and enthusiastic life spent exploring the ocean's wonders flashed before his eyes as he endured the torture. Realizing how much was at stake, he propelled himself to summon every ounce of his strength. The shark, determined to make Stoke its prey, swam toward the shore and maneuvered its direction. The shark now faced Stoke, who was unknowingly swimming toward it. Before he could discover that, the shark swallowed him and unleashed a powerful bite on his head. That immediately rendered him lifeless. Although the shark later released its grip after pulling him into the depth of water for a while, the harm had been done. Stoke's coach alerted the Isle of Man authorities about the potential missing swimmer. When he didn't hear from him throughout the day, a search was conducted throughout the city and also the water. After 2 days, Stoke was found floating on one of the beaches and had begun decomposing gradually. The lifeguard recovered his body gently and he was transported back to Ireland for a proper funeral. Before he was buried, an autopsy was conducted and a 2-inch-long shark tooth was found in his skull. Stoke's untimely death was a tragic event that profoundly affected the nation. His death sent a shockwave throughout the country, leaving his people devastated. When the news was first published in Ireland, people discarded it as a rumor. They struggled to accept the sudden loss of their promising talent. Someone who recently won an international medal for the country couldn't have died such a horrible death. When it became clear that he was dead, the swimming community, fellow athletes, friends, and family were devastated. Their grief was compounded by the closeness of their friendship with Stoke. The whole country mourned his death. Vigils and memorial gatherings were organized nationwide. The country rallied behind Stoke's grieving family, offering their support and condolences. Various NGOs and crowdfunding campaigns were initiated, and they supported the family in their time of need. The Isle of Man authorities closed the beach and launched a full-scale search to capture the shark who killed Stoke. With the help of the shark's tooth recovered from the autopsy, they knew it was likely a 10-foot-long shark. After some days, they captured the shark, and it was euthanized. Signs and banners highlighting the risks of the water were strategically positioned along the shoreline to deter any more damage. Also, barricades were placed in the water to warn swimmers not to cross the boundary. Although appropriate measures had been implemented already, Stoke's death will remain a defining moment in the history of the beach. The tranquil seas shimmered under warm sunlight as the Serenity Star luxury cruise ship glided through the ocean. It had left the port in Israel, and the next stop would be Cyprus in the Mediterranean. It would take as much as 6 days to get there. The passenger manifest was teeming with people from all walks and classes of life. Fortunately, it was the summer season when people were more likely to go on vacation, and the ship crew was constantly kept busy on this particular cruise, especially at this time of year. At least they were grateful to work despite the economic downturn affecting Europe. However, tragedy struck on the 4th day of their voyage when a male passenger, Mr. Richard Hamilton, was reported missing. The crew and fellow passengers frantically searched the ship, but their efforts were futile. His wife reported him missing the next morning. He had simply left their bed for fresh air, or so she thought, but he never returned, and she had drifted off to sleep again. One day later, the news spread like wildfire. Certain biologists had caught a shark for a study. They hoped to catch it and then release it after placing a tracker on it for scientific purposes. But they weren't ready for what they discovered next. They realized the shark was acting strange and had ingested something it shouldn't have. So they gave it a laxative suited for sharks. And then it puked up a wedding ring and some human bone fragments. It was then that it all came to light. Aside from the fact that this would ruin the experiment, they also felt disgusted. But more significantly, the shocking discovery of Mr. Hamilton's body within this same 18-foot shark shook the ship's passengers and crew to their core. The initial theory of a tragic accident quickly faded away as unsettling whispers of foul play and murder spread among the shocked guests. The ship's captain, Captain Sullivan, ordered everyone to remain in their rooms and not even think of attempting to disembark. They had a day before they could get to the next port, and it was a tense 24 hours. Mr. Hamilton's wife had it the worst because her emotions were everywhere. Captain Sullivan had graciously dispatched a few crew members to be with her and comfort her. Meanwhile, he had called upon the authorities on land to investigate the mysterious incident once the ship had berthed. Upon the ship's mooring, a certain detective named Sarah Lawson took charge of the case. She was a seasoned investigator known for her sharp instincts. She assembled a team to question the passengers, seeking any shred of evidence that might point toward the truth. This was as big as it got regarding police work, literally and figuratively. Aside from having to question hundreds of passengers and subsequently sift through all the testimonies and evidence, the case was also a big deal in the eyes of the public. The entire manifest was brought in for questioning one by one, creating an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty aboard the ship at the end of a rigorous session of eyewitness testimonies. The suspects were narrowed down to those who may have had direct contact with Mr. Hamilton in the last few days the ship was sailing at sea. Among these suspects were an enigmatic couple, the Parkers, who had shared a table with Mr. Hamilton and his wife Emily throughout the voyage. There was also a disgruntled former business partner, Mr. Roberts, with a history of animosity toward the victim. Additionally, a secretive artist named Miss Davis, whose eerie demeanor raised suspicion, found herself under scrutiny. To be sure, they were presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. As for Sarah, she was all too glad to have gotten to the meat of it all. Now she could shine by doing what she was best at. Her deputies and junior officers had done all the sifting and presented her with the few who ought to be followed up on. Meanwhile, Emily Hamilton, Richard's grieving wife, was left to grapple with a whirlwind of emotions. The sudden loss of her husband and the harrowing circumstances surrounding his demise weighed heavily on her heart. She found solace in the ship's chapel, where she sought comfort amidst the storm of uncertainty. They were both in their 60s and had decided to do something different for their anniversary. They had come on this cruise against their children's wishes, and now look what happened. Emily didn't have the heart to call their children and tell them the sad news. However ridiculous the thought was, she preferred they hear it on TV. She was so heartbroken that she didn't want to talk with anyone, not even her immediate family. The truth was that the blame partly fell at her feet because they had planned this trip together. This weighed heavily on her and made her grief a little more painful. So she was here before the raised cross to recover her spirit and pray for her husband's soul. Even though it took a while, the investigation reached a pivotal moment when a random and almost insignificant clue popped up. An observant deckhand reported a sighting of the colossal shark near the ship during the fateful night of Richard's disappearance. This was strange to him because sharks were not known to be nocturnal creatures. And so, guided by this crucial lead, the authorities, with the help of the marine biologists who had spotted the shark earlier, embarked on an intense search to locate the predator again. Equipped with advanced technology and unwavering determination, they tracked down the shark that had consumed Richard Hamilton. When the team found it, they suddenly realized they had been dealing with an anomaly all along. This particular shark had never been in the open sea but had been raised in captivity. They knew this because they were marine biologists after all. What they found next astounded them even more. This shark originated from inside the cruise ship. Someone had smuggled a shark tank on board and then released it into the open sea when Mr. Hamilton disappeared. So Sarah retrieved Mr. Hamilton's phone and checked the call logs but found nothing. Then it occurred to her to check his social feeds. When that didn't produce anything, she checked his internal company messenger. Emily was helpful as they tried one password after another until they cracked it. Right there, it was clear. Mr. Hamilton's last correspondence was with Mr. Roberts, who had called him onto the same deck where he was last spotted. The shark was supposed to be a diversion to suggest Mr. Hamilton slipped to his death and was subsequently eaten by the shark. Mr. Roberts confessed to the crime and implicated 2 other deckhands who had helped him smuggle the shark on board to release it when the time came. This turn of events brought Emily some relief. Her husband had been himself to the end, and he died an honest man. Irrespective of the harrowing events that unfolded aboard the Serenity Star, they would forever remind her of the fragile nature of life and the resilience of the human spirit, especially that of Mr. Hamilton, her husband. Linda Smith was an American biologist and an animal enthusiast. She had studied biology, and she was always desperate to discover animals. Linda had already visited numerous jungles with different research travel agencies. Eager to explore the wonders of underwater life, Linda decided to embark on a thrilling adventure, an underwater sea expedition. With diligent savings, she secured a spot with a renowned research center for this exciting journey. She was enthusiastic about this and wanted to make as many memories as possible. She wanted to capture the marine life and raise concerns associated with marine life. She wanted to go as a savior for the underwater community. This trip was not simply enjoyable for her, but a research project too, so she wanted to stay as productive as possible. She was eager to explore the uncharted depths of the ocean. The research center had developed a cutting-edge underwater facility. They had purpose-built submarines for their travelers. The highly anticipated expedition drew the attention of only a select few bold and adventurous scientists who had secured their spots months in advance. Linda got a chance to discover the waters with 4 of the top-notch scientists in the state. On the scorching day of April 20th, 1961, the sun blazed relentlessly overhead as the submarine descended into the ocean's depths. It was controlled by a panel in the research center. Linda was enjoying the colorful marine life. Basking in the warm embrace of the sun's rays, Linda reveled in the beauty of the ocean's surface. Meanwhile, Mr. Jack, one of the scientists on board, gathered the other team members to discuss the final destination of their sea expedition. It was an underwater cave system. This cave network is famous for its diverse marine life. Linda, fueled by her deep connection with water inhabitants, had dedicated significant time to researching and familiarizing herself with the animals that resided within these caves. Her excitement was increasing with every passing second. As they reached the underwater cave system, Mr. Jack alerted them about the population of sharks. They were eager to see the sharks, but a serious problem awaited them. The submarine experienced some technical issues. Mr. Jack immediately pressed the emergency button because he didn't want to take risks in the middle of the land of sharks. He wanted to get the submersible safe from that place. Mr. Jack got worried when the emergency button lost communication with the research panel. A sense of unease filled the air as the crew received news of lost communication with the outside world. Linda, the only woman among them, felt her fear instilled within her at the realization. The submersible was standing straight in the middle of the sharks. Mr. Jack was trying to figure out the problems. He was well aware that if the sub stayed for half an hour in the danger zone, they'd have no choice but to dive. They were only a few meters down the water, and it was possible to reach the shore safely. The problems increased when they saw the shadow of a magnificent creature from the sub's window. They knew it was a shark. The queen of the ocean seemed pretty aggressive and was ready to eat human flesh. Its huge muscular body was a sign of how hungry it was and desperate enough to eat all of them. Mr. Jack didn't want to disturb the sharks in their territory. But he had lost all the communications. Diving deep down was the only way to get rid of this situation. Mr. Jack discussed the situation with the crew and ordered them to take extra oxygen. Linda's adrenaline surged. She constantly tried to keep herself calm, but it was nearly impossible. She knew the sharks were quite aggressive, but they had no choice but to dive. It was clear death if they remained within the sub, because they would have automatically run out of oxygen in 2 days. Mr. Jack shouted, "Are you guys ready? I'll dive in first and you guys follow me." Linda mustered up some courage and followed Mr. Jack. Linda was the last one, and the shark was right behind her. Linda tried her level best to swim as fast as she could. As Linda's amygdala flooded her system with stress hormones, a wave of nervousness coursed through her body. The circumstances threatened to overpower her. The waves were constantly resisting her from moving forward, and Linda was stepping backward toward the shark. This was a real trauma. Mr. Jack realized that Linda was losing her courage. He rushed backward and grabbed Linda's hand. He was constantly bucking her up, but Linda was close to fainting. Linda fainted after a few minutes. The shark was just behind them. Mr. Jack had no choice but to leave her behind. He had a death in front of him, and he couldn't bear the weight of 2 people. Battling against the powerful waves, he yearned to break free from the danger zone and find a place of safety. After a constant fight between his heart and brain, Mr. Jack left her hand. The shark got easy prey. It rushed towards Linda. Mr. Jack looked back. He saw a shark eating its prey. His tears dissolved with water. He had no choice but to move forward. All other team members reached the shore. The research panel told them that they had lost communication. All of them mourned the death of their teammate. Linda's love for nature made her prey to the deadly shark. Linda's story became a tale of bravery and resilience. The research center worked hard on their subs and used proper protective measures. An era came to an end. Lucas Charlie has been in the diving industry for over 15 years as a scuba diving instructor. He had a scuba diving school where he taught water enthusiasts the art of scuba diving. Based in Alice Springs, Australia, Charlie had no chance to explore natural beaches. He only had chances to dive in and teach in water holes, lakes, and swimming pools. After maintaining his scuba diving course standards for a while, Charlie was awarded the PADI Elite Instructor Award in 1997, after issuing over 50 certifications. Seeking a fresh adventure, Charlie ventured on a journey with his wife Linda and their children Jack and Noah to Kangaroo Island, a suburb renowned for its plentiful water resources. He planned a full vacation but went with their scuba gear. What enjoyment could he experience if not good scuba diving? In Charlie's family, All except Noah were obsessed with scuba diving. Linda was also a scuba diver and instructor before meeting her husband, and still works at the diving course. Jack was also serious about the sport, and even bagged himself a certificate. Noah, on his part, believed the sport was too dangerous. On getting to the island, Charlie asks for a guide and specifically a fellow scuba expert, since they have many things in common and can even challenge each other to a race. They set out to Vivon Bay on the next day. The guide, Leon, was a regular at the beach, so he knew his way through. Charlie was taken aback when he spotted the beach. He couldn't believe such a paradise was in his country. Vivon Bay has abounded with a crescent of white sand lapped by turquoise waters. Its sea was like a rippling blanket of brochure blue with the waves rippling gently. Jack and Noah threw their gears down and ran like little kids before venturing into the water. They swam the shallow part and splashed water at each other while Charlie discussed diving-related issues with Leon, with Linda listening. Before returning for a long dive, they went to a beach restaurant for sandwiches and salad. Before entering the water, they did a gear check to ensure they had everything complete to dive. After the check, Charlie helped Linda to put on her gear, while Leon helped Jack with his own. Noah just sat on a beach chair watching them. He was in charge of watching over their belongings. Each had 2 full tanks of 3,000 psi each, which was plenty for a dive. They also brought 8mm wetsuits that were perfect for the cold water. After wearing all these, they did a final gear check. Leon jumped into the water, gave the surface okay, and the rest jumped in. They felt the coldness of the water for the first 3 minutes, and then the wetsuit started working, and they felt warm. They descended slowly into the water till they all got knee-deep. Linda, being experienced, dived into the water quickly and began diving. The others had to do the same and went their separate ways. Linda, an influencer on social media, went far underneath the water to take a selfie of herself to upload on her accounts. After taking the picture, she saw an attractive starfish and tried catching it. The starfish escaped, and Linda followed it in an attempt to catch it. Before she knew it, her scuba tank oxygen was about to exhaust. Although Linda successfully captured the sea creature, she had wasted her oxygen and was far from the beach. Even if she tries swimming, she won't be able to swim for so long. Suddenly, she saw a yacht sailing slowly, not too far from her. She screamed at it to alert any occupant but couldn't be heard as no one was on the deck, so she glided toward it. By this time, she had removed the mask from her face as the oxygen had completely been exhausted. The tank was on her back because she didn't want to lose it to the sea. While swimming towards her savior, she looked sideways to catch her breath, and her eyes saw something glide across her. She became very nervous about what it could be and stopped while looking here and there for any further signs. However, she couldn't contemplate as an 18-foot shark clamped its enormous teeth onto her stomach from underneath the water. She gave a terrifying cry that made the water ripple. Fortunately, the cry alerted the crew on the yacht, and they sailed toward her while she struggled to free herself from the shark's teeth. Little did she know that she was caught in the jaw of the biggest shark in Australia. The shark shook her violently, its razor-sharp teeth sinking deep into her abdomen before the yacht could reach the spot. One of the crew had a reload gun with which he fired at the shark, causing it to release its grip and swim away. 2 of the crew went into the water to carry Linda into the yacht, but it was too late. The shark had torn her intestine beyond repair, and as soon as she reached the safety of the yacht, she took her final breath. Her body was carefully placed in a body bag, and they drove back to the shore because they believed some people would be looking for her. And it was true. The other 3 that entered the water didn't swim beyond the demarcated area. After depleting their oxygen supply, the 3 swam back to the surface, only to realize that Linda had not resurfaced with them. Charlie ventures into the water again without any tank and searches for her, but she can't be found. They waited anxiously, not until the body bag was brought out of the yacht. Charlie ran toward them to check if it was his wife and was saddened to find out Linda was dead after a shark attack. Noah cried bitterly and blamed his dad for suggesting scuba diving. He even fought with Leon, who was a Kangaroo Island local, that he knew the water was dangerous and still led them to it. But the damage has been done. Linda's body was taken back to Alice Springs, where she was laid to rest. Charlie went into depression for months before he abandoned scuba diving, as it made him remember his wife's death and what led to it. He hopes he can live peacefully again without the painful memory. With many years ahead of them, Jack and Noah gradually learn to cope with the grief and begin to remember their mother with love and fondness. They commemorate her life by honoring an annual anniversary in her honor. Zion Fayez was a 30-year-old Iraqi soldier who was given leave after his gallant actions during a concluded war in 1960. Although he was wounded in the war, he fought bravely and was rewarded with a medal and a lump sum as a prize for his heroic act. After a 6-month-long sojourn protecting the country, he traveled back to Hilla's hometown to meet his wife, Roa, and 5-year-old daughter. He even bought falafel ground bean fritters from Baghdad to present to his daughter, Amal. However, when he got home and was welcomed by Roa, he didn't see Amal rushing out to his embrace as the kid used to do. Upon asking, he discovered that Amal was down on a sick bed. She had been ill for the past 2 weeks and was taken to several hospitals in the locality. With not much money, Amal couldn't be hospitalized, so she is being treated at home. Zion quickly rushed inside and took her daughter to one of the best hospitals in the town, where she spent 5 days before she became hale and hearty. During her ailing period, Zion promised her that if she stayed with him, he would fulfill her wish. Amal reminded her dad about his promise and told him about going on a vacation. Before mentioning any place, Amal quickly reminds her father that they aren't going to Karbala again. No visiting of shrines. They should try another experience. Zion had no choice but to follow his daughter's lead. He asked her where they should go, and she said a bar or beach. Rowan, who had been overhearing what the duo was discussing, also seconded Amal's opinion. She added that despite her age, she had never witnessed such an immense body of water. She only saw those on their television. Zion reminds them that he isn't rich enough to sponsor a flight to a coastal town, which makes Roa suggest traveling to Kuwait by land. The trio packed their traveling bags for a week's vacation in Kuwait. They boarded a bus going through the route. After spending some hours, they alight at the park, very weary. Zion asks around for a hotel nearer to the beach and at the same time for the middle class. Fortunately, they were directed to one and lodged into a room. They had nothing much to do in the city, so they headed to the beach the next day. Kuwaiti was quiet and calm, with the inky sounds of waves crashing at the shore. A slight wind sent trembles over their bodies as they walked along the sand. There weren't a lot of tourists at the beach when they came, so they had time to pick a good spot to set up their picnic mat. After having breakfast and taking some time to rest, Amal took out a kite and began running around with it, watching it soar in the wind above her. After running around for a while, she went back to her parents and they built little sand castles and stuff, all in a bid to make the vacation splendid. They all sat watching as the tide destroyed the castle. Zion went to the coastline and sat with his feet in the water. Their waves splash onto him. His body has gotten used to the cold water as it sweeps over his feet occasionally, and the initial trembling sensation is gone. Zion felt his sorrow moving away from him and found his mind so calm. Rowan came to meet him and rested her head on his arm. It's been a while since they sat together again. The couple looked into the vast ocean with clothes moving as fresh winds and waves glided toward them. After a while, Roa revealed her plan to swim in the water, and he asked her husband to join her. Zion showed her his injured leg, which couldn't allow him to swim as he would be in inexplicable pain and danger. Also, someone needed to stay with Amal from wandering into the bubbling beach. They came to the beach as early as 7 a.m. An hour later, tourists were packed in the area and having fun. Zion called Amal to sit with him while her mom entered the shallow water. He played local sand games with his daughter and occasionally checked on his wife in the water. Roa remained mostly in the shallow parts, rarely staying from waist-deep water. But after a while of enjoying the cold sensation of the water, she swam across a stretch of water around 7 feet deep. By this time, Zion had become deeply engrossed in his game and argument with Amal and failed to check on his wife. It was, however, too late when he remembered because his wife had disappeared from the water. Despite being injured, he stood up instantly and called on Roa but did not answer. Roa, swimming alone and facing the shore, remained oblivious to the shark stealthily approaching from beneath. In a swift and sudden attack, the shark clamped its jaws around her, swiftly dragging her beneath the water. leaving her no chance to scream. Water forcefully went down her throat, which hurt like hell. She frantically struggled and raised her head to the water again, which made Zion see her. As he attempted to enter the water with the predator, one of the tourists at the beach held him down. His resounding yell of his wife's name had made tourists gather around the area, so they quickly stopped him from joining the death struggle. So he watched as Roa struggled to free herself from the shark's mouth. Lifeguards hadn't started work because it was still early in the morning. After a few minutes, the shark ruthlessly tore her apart and swiftly retreated into the depths of the water. The surrounding water transformed, becoming a gruesome crimson shade as it absorbed the tragic scene. Zion stood holding Amal, and he had turned pale from the shock of the attack. Amal observed the unfolding events with a sense of apprehension, realizing that the outcome would have adverse consequences for her. Some minutes after the attack, an ambulance and the lifeguards arrived. Zion and Amal were taken to a hospital to treat the adverse symptoms of the shock, as it could lead to death. A specialist search team scoured the water to recover Roa's body, but her remains were later seen 50 yards from the shore. She was buried at a cemetery before her husband and daughter were discharged. Zion didn't even bother to ask for her remains. It would only lead to tragic consequences. He is ready to accept his new role as a single father, which made him resign from the army and open a food truck business, even though they lived in the coastal city of California. It was 1981 when Emma Peterson, aged 18, ventured out with 3 friends, 300 meters from the shore at West Beach, South Australia. The sky was clear, with no clouds in sight, making it a perfect day for surfing. Surfing, a thrilling water sport that combines skiing and surfing, was enjoyed by many on that scorching day as people sought relief from the heat in the ocean. Emma and her friends Ty Wheeler, Adam Farini, and Andrew Tomlin, teenagers from Adelaide's western suburbs, took turns on the surfboards after swimming for half an hour. Little did they know that a massive great white shark lurked nearby, measuring nearly 6 meters long. With its size matched only by its viciousness, the shark was stealthily stalking the group from a distance, observing them and waiting for the opportune moment to strike. In the area where Emma and her friends enjoyed their hobby, sightings of large great whites were common. Just weeks before the incident, 2 men in a boat had a close encounter with a 5-meter white shark while fishing 10 kilometers off the shore of St. Kilda, north of Adelaide. The following day, fishermen off North Haven were terrorized by a shark of the same size, causing swimmers to scramble for safety. Additionally, on December 2nd, a shark was spotted far out in St. Vincent Gulf. Gary Biddle from the Grange Surf Life Saving Club had seen white sharks swim under his boat, while offshore at Grange the previous weekend. In the hours leading up to the tragedy, Lenka Mersalkova, a tourist from the Czech Republic, unknowingly witnessed a truly terrifying sight. She glimpsed an enormous black dorsal fin 30 meters from the shore while looking at the sea. Mistaking it for a dolphin, she decided to snap a picture. Meanwhile, Emma excitedly jumped into the water as her friend climbed back onto the boat. That's when disaster struck. As soon as Emma's body entered the water, she was caught off guard by a massive mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth, lunging at her with unimaginable force. The shark's teeth tore into Emma's flesh, gripping her left shoulder and shaking her violently, ripping large chunks of her body away. Seeing Emma writhed in pain, her friends desperately attempted to rescue her, futilely striking the shark with their paddles. But it was too late. The relentless predator circled and submerged with Emma still in its jaws multiple times before disappearing for good, leaving only seconds between life and death. Emma resurfaced as her friends struggled to comprehend the horrifying events that unfolded. Their gazes turned toward her, and what they saw left them horrified. Emma's lifeless body floated face down, motionless, her lower half missing. Her body drifted in the water among an unholy mixture of blood, tissue, and half-torn organs. Emma's friends raced south to the Adelaide Shores boat ramp immediately after the attack. Minutes later, one of the teenagers tearfully ran up the beach, urgently warning swimmers to leave the water. There were rumors of another smaller 14.5-foot great white briefly glimpsing at Emma's remains. At the same time, a large crowd had gathered at the shoreline. After thoroughly searching the beach and sea, the only remnants found were 2 small pieces of one of Emma's lungs. During fatal shark attacks, researchers have discovered that lung tissue samples are often the only ones that may escape consumption. The air-filled nature of the pulmonary tissue causes it to rise rapidly to the surface, providing insight into the cause of death when there are no witnesses. One of Emma's friends, Ty Wheeler, vividly recalls that fateful day. "I was watching Andrew in the water while Emma was diving, and we saw dolphins," he said. "We turned the boat around, and it was such a magical sight that we decided to get closer to them." It is speculated that one of the so-called dolphins they observed was, in fact, the predator that attacked Emma. In a complicated and traumatizing retelling of the harrowing events, Ty Wheeler describes the shark strike as incredibly swift, leaving the teens barely any time to react. Emma's body was torn in half within seconds, followed by a smaller shark moving in to feast on the remains. The water near the beach gradually turned red with blood, filled with unrecognizable body parts, and some remnants washed ashore, creating a disturbing scene for onlookers. Subsequent searches of the area only yielded pieces of Emma's lung. The South Australian Sea Rescue Squadron spokesperson Fraser Bell stated, "The shark tore her apart. It tore her in half and the other shark came in and took the rest." When asked if there was any chance Emma may have survived, Bell's response was only, "None whatsoever." Upon reporting the attack, the police promptly closed several beaches. They initiated air and sea searches at 3:30 p.m., while patrols along the coast warned people about the recent incident. Initially believed to involve two sharks, further investigation revealed that only a 5 to 6 meter shark was responsible. Although great white sharks are a protected species in Australia, officials held a meeting on December 18th. They decided the specific shark involved in the attack must be located and killed. Unsurprisingly, two of Emma's friends required therapy to cope with the devastating trauma they experienced. The trauma, which may never fully heal or fade from their memories, is a poignant reminder that sharks are integral to the natural environment. Respecting their innate instincts to seek food and avoid disturbing them is crucial. While shark attacks are rare, nothing in this world is inevitable. Tragedy and fortune lie in the realm of possibilities when the wheel of fate spins. No one should ever feel overly comfortable in shark territory. It is vital to remain aware of the surroundings and exercise caution when swimming in regions where these majestic creatures are known to roam. Ignoring these precautions may lead to becoming little more than a formless mass of flesh and bone, drifting atop crimson waters, with final thoughts fixated on the ultimate affliction endured. Daniel Alexander was a Swiss native who worked as an airport protocol officer in Zurich. He aimed to work as a pilot but became a mere officer that arranged travelers and their luggage. Daniel worked at a company that focused on intercontinental passenger transport. Surprisingly, he hadn't traveled beyond his country's borders. Unfortunately, this prevented him from fully indulging in his greatest passion, swimming. In his landlocked homeland, he had only experienced the joy of swimming within the confines of swimming pools. However, an intense desire resided within him, fueling a longing to explore distant shores. This desire compelled him to visit neighboring countries like France or Italy, where he dreamed of immersing himself in the vast oceans of Marseille or Naples. Unlike most people, Daniel worked towards his dream by saving up from his salary. He had planned on saving for 3 years to afford a good 2-week vacation in Italy or France. Fortunately, he had saved up for a year before the airport authorities increased staff salaries, allowing him to save up for 1 more year before using his leave period for vacation. As he drove to the airport, this time as a traveler, Daniel reflected on his journey. He had been very hard-working, securing a job for himself despite many others vying for the position. And now he was sponsoring himself on vacation to one of the top countries in the world, France. Daniel felt a sense of excitement mixed with nervousness and anticipation as he entered the airplane. He was flooded with wonder as he realized he was about to experience an extraordinary adventure, envisioning the type of places he would explore and the people he would meet. Although he had been entering the plane earlier, it was nothing like this. The hostess attending to him before the flight gave him a feeling of achievement. On entering the plane, he was lucky to sit beside the window thinking about the exhilarating experiences he would have during the vacation. He looked through the window, appreciating nature till the plane taxied down the runway of Marseille. Daniel lodged in a beach hotel on the picturesque beach of Marseille and asked for a guide. The guide, Theo, asked him things he would like to do while in France, to which he answered that he would like to try French delicacies. Theo took him to a French restaurant where he had bouillabaisse, French onion soup, and chocolate soufflé. While eating, he asked Theo if he was a good swimmer because he wanted to learn the art of swimming before traveling back to Zurich. Theo replied that he could swim but was not an expert. However, he would introduce a swimmer to him the next day. He dropped him at his hotel while he sped off. During the evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel was drawn to the beach he overlooked through his hotel room. He went to the shore, removed his shoes, and walked on the sandy white beach. With each step, his toes sank into the warm sand with a sense of calmness enveloping him. The gentle caresses of the sand between his toes were grounding and invigorating. After a while, he sat on a beach chair overlooking the natural water until dusk. He dared not venture into it as he knew nothing about swimming. Theo came with an expert swimmer the next day, as promised. Eduardo was an expert who had won various prizes for his act, so it was a rare privilege that he was the one to train Daniel. They strolled from the hotel to the beach. Daniel wasn't fluent in French, so Theo interpreted everything he said to Eduardo. Impressed by Daniel's enthusiasm and eagerness, Eduardo was happy to pass on some of the knowledge he had gained over years of experience. Daniel and Eduardo changed into their swimsuits while Theo watched. Seconds later, he changed into his. He didn't want to be left out. The trio waded into the gentle waves, where Eduardo began teaching Daniel the fundamental swimming techniques, with Theo swimming away. Throughout the lesson, Eduardo emphasized the importance of understanding the ocean's behavior. Daniel listened with rapt attention and steadily grew more confident with each passing moment. After the lesson, it was time for practice. Daniel glided into the shallow water slowly, but seeing Eduardo going very fast, he tried to copy him. He swam with all his might towards Eduardo, but didn't catch up with him. Eduardo reached the demarcated line in the ocean and turned back, swimming toward the shore. Before Daniel could maneuver his way back, Eduardo had reached the shore waiting for him. Theo stood on the shore, dressed up and ready for their upcoming visit to the golf course after their swimming lesson. Exhausted from his first swimming, Daniel took it easy and waded in the water while the duo kept a watchful eye on him. Unknown to him, a shark was also gliding toward him. However, it was too late when Theo alerted him of the danger. The great white shark had sunk its teeth into his thigh. Shock and pain coursed through Daniel's body as the force of the bite propelled him backward. He uttered a terrifying scream, making Theo and Eduardo enter the water to save him. Being a rookie, he didn't know how to free himself from the beast's jaw, but still, he kept hitting its head, which did nothing to the predator. The 10-foot white shark unleashed another bite on his calf, which led to another excruciating cry. Theo and Eduardo swam frantically toward him, with one of them holding a golf club. The shark could not lacerate any of these parts, so it went for Daniel's ankle. By this third bite, Daniel was as good as dead. His cry shook the ocean, and tourists gathered around the shore looking at the unfortunate incident. Some of them had called the ambulance in case Daniel survived the attack and, if not, to transport his body. Theo and Eduardo got to his side, with Theo swinging the club at the shark and Eduardo trying hard to pry the predator's mouth open. The shark opened its mouth a little but quickly bit onto Daniel's ankle again. It wanted to chop off Eduardo's hand, but he quickly pulled his hand away, so the sharp teeth landed on helpless Daniel's leg. Theo intensified his effort and kept hitting the shark with the club until the shark let go of Daniel and retreated. But it didn't do that immediately. It launched another attack on the same spot on Daniel's ankle, determined to chop it off. But Theo hit its gill, which made the shark retreat into the water. Daniel was carried ashore and into the ambulance to a hospital. He was treated for all the bites from the shark's attack. Upon getting discharged, Daniel returned to his hotel to continue his vacation. Determined not to squander his hard-earned money, he decided to avoid venturing into the ocean again. Instead, Eduardo took on the role of teaching him the art of swimming in the safe confines of a swimming pool. 75 years old, Cynthia Williams had been bedridden by an illness for a while. After several months in the hospital, her health was restored. Although all her bills were footed by her only son, Maxwell, He didn't have time for his mother since he worked as a pilot. A week after Cynthia recovered and was discharged, the doctor warned her not to be alone again. Maxwell couldn't dump his mom at the elderly home, so he took Cynthia into his home to live with her grandson, Gnome. Cynthia was a regular at the Florida beach before her illness, so the weekend that followed her move into her son's home, she embarked on the heartwarming journey with her grandson. As Cynthia arrived at the beautiful beach of Florida, she marveled at the shimmering golden sand and the soothing sound of the crashing waves. The scent of salty area air brings back cherished memories of her youthful days when she used to run around the beach with her friends. The sight of the vast ocean expanse brought tears of joy from her eyes. It had been such a long time since she had immersed herself in the salty embrace of the beach. Gnome was a tech-savvy teenager who normally finds following his grandmother to the beach unexciting. However, he realized that Cynthia's enthusiasm for nature was unbeatable. With his support, Cynthia made her way to the water's edge, with each step filled with gratitude for the healing journey she had embarked on. She sat close to the water, and the water gently flowed to her feet. She held Gnome's hand and heaved a sigh of relief as the cool water gently caressed her feet. After a while, they strode back to the beach, building sandcastles with little children. Cynthia couldn't help but recount her adventures when she was Gnome's age. As the sun began to set, they called it a day and returned to their home feeling fulfilled. While they were at the beach, Cynthia was happy that her not-so-interested grandson became deeply engrossed, as he kept saving the essence of their beach journey through videos and pictures, trying to preserve his adventure with Grandma. Although Gnome had visited the beach many times, the feeling was different. Maybe it was because he went with a family member. Maxwell is always at work and doesn't have time for him. Gnome's mother divorced his dad when he was 10, and he never saw her again. However, with Cynthia, he would not feel alone. Maxwell was granted a summer break, which he intended to spend with Cynthia and Gnome. Gnome's reaction upon sharing the news with him was one of excitement, and he promptly proposed that they return to the beach. The trio set their spot near the shoreline when they arrived at the beach. Although she had been there the previous day, Cynthia couldn't help but marvel at the vast water in front of her. She felt compelled to take advantage of the sandy beach and gentle surf. After Maxwell advised her not to wade too deep, she responded immediately and dove in. Maxwell and Naomi didn't swim but went to a nearby ski shop to rent ski boards and towboats. While Cynthia swam slowly in the shallow parts, Max and Gnome set out into the water equipped with their skis, life jackets, and the towboat. As the boat accelerated, they felt the rush of adrenaline and water spraying against their face. The feeling of gliding effortlessly through the water was heavenly as they found their balance and adapted to the boat's motion. Max and Gnome became more comfortable on their skis with each passing of time. They navigate the water's surface expertly, feeling the resistance and power of the tow rope as it propels them forward. Waddling like a duck, Cynthia found solace in the water as well. Eager to see what lay beneath the surface, Cynthia swam forward and submerged herself slightly. She looked ahead and saw a massive shark approaching her at high speed. She tried to swim back to shore, but she was too slow to outrun the predator due to her advanced age and recent recovery from an illness. Within seconds, the shark tore into her flesh. She screamed, but neither Maxwell nor Gnome could hear that. Firstly, they were far from her. Then they giggled and laughed loudly, excitedly filling the air so they couldn't hear. Little did they know that Cynthia was in grave danger. Fear gripped her as she realized that she was in an unsafe situation. However, she didn't succumb easily to the prey. What ensues is a relentless and desperate struggle against the formidable predator. She fights back with every ounce of strength left in her ailing body. Fortunately, she escaped its grasp and tried swimming back toward the shore. Despite her valiant effort, the shark returned, striking her again on the same wounded leg. Cynthia's resilience was put to a great test as the pain intensified. However, she refused to succumb to despair. By this time, other tourists on the beach have seen the attack and call out to everyone in the water to come out. The lifeguard also went into the water to save her. That was when Naomi and Maxwell looked back and discovered Cynthia was in danger. The shark had ruthlessly sank its teeth into her stomach, leaving her weak and writhing in agony. Her scream echoes across the water as she battles the acute pain from the encounter. Maxwell, Gnome, and the lifeguard reached Cynthia in time. The The shark was sprayed with a repellent to ward it off. Then Cynthia was brought to the shore, where she continued to bleed heavily. When the shark bit her, she had no more power to ward it off but possessed a sheer will to survive, making her mind race with thoughts of loved ones and unfulfilled dreams. After she was saved, Maxwell and Gnome stayed by her side while waiting for the paramedics. Minutes later, they arrived and she was carried into the ambulance. Unfortunately, Cynthia passed away while on her way to the hospital. She went into shock because of the blood loss she endured. Maxwell was devastated by the news but comforted by the fact that he had been able to spend some time with her mother before she passed away. Gnome, too, was unhappy with the turn of events. He had been suffering from boredom, which disappeared with his grandmother's presence, and now death had snatched her away. Cynthia was buried at a local Florida cemetery, and her offspring had to carry on with life. Bernie Anderson was a marine biologist. Bernie worked in an animal research center. He was passionate about the animals and their lives. He had already published numerous research papers. Bernie was among the top researchers in the country because he was always in awe of new research and never stopped seeking knowledge. Mr. Bernie decided to go on a sea expedition. He talked to the research center where he worked. Bernie needed 2 members of the crew, specifically a doctor and a technician. It was hard to convince them to get to this expedition because everyone knew the consequences. No one knew if they would come back alive because they had to go 5,000 meters down under the water. This was where very little amount of sunlight managed to reach the water. They had to explore in the dark. After numerous presentations and discussions, Dr. Harry and technician Peter agreed to come with Bernie. A submersible was specifically designed for this purpose. It had all the necessary equipment for protection in case of any trouble. The sub had a protection mechanism to cope with the deep water pressure. The 28th of July 2002 was quite an exciting day for Mr. Bernie, as he was about to accomplish his lifelong dream. He was about to research the primary reasons behind the extinction of marine animals. The submersible descended. Inside the submarine, crew members monitored the instruments and scanned the sonar for marine life. They were enjoying nature and its products. The vibrant coral reefs also came into view, adding to the breathtaking underwater panorama. Mr. Bernie was controlling the submarine. It had 2 control systems. One was controlled by Mr. Bernie, and the other was an emergency control system controlled by a panel of experts in the research center. The submarine was moving with ordinary speed when suddenly it stopped with a jerk. The sub had collided with a rock. Mr. Bernie was pretty concerned as they were in the danger zone. They were in the land of sharks. The doctor started trembling with fear as he had treated some of the injured patients because of the shark attacks. He could feel the affliction. Suddenly, a blip appeared on the sonar system. This alerted all the crew members. Mr. Bernie used the remote control to break the shackle. Instead of moving forward, the submersible went upside down. The roof of the sub hit Mr. Bernie hard, and he lost consciousness. He had some sort of injury in the head. There was a small wound near his right ear, and he was bleeding profusely. The doctor rushed towards Bernie, and the technician took control of the sub. The sonar identified a magnificent creature moving towards them. It was a great white shark with metal-like sharp teeth. The tension in the air was palpable. The shark was almost the size of a small car. The technician kept trying to take the submarine away from the apex predator of the water, but the efforts were all in vain. The situation was getting out of hand. They had to reach the surface as soon as possible, but they were surrounded by a plethora of problems now. The great white shark was coming nearer and nearer. Eventually, it immersed one of its sharp metallic teeth in the sub. The submarine was damaged, causing water to leak inside. Mr. Harry quickly activated the emergency alarm, and the control panel alerted. They made some essential moves and tried to remove the submersible from the shark's mouth. The shark was about to close its mouth. Mr. Peter remained focused on controlling the remote. Meanwhile, Dr. Harry urgently performed CPR on Mr. Bernie, who was in critical condition. After mutual efforts, they finally succeeded in taking the sub out of the shark's mouth. Harry rushed towards the hole created by the shark and taped it using his toolkit. Driven by Bernie's significance to the nation, Dr. Harry worked tirelessly to keep him alive. The submarine's outer shell was breached from several places. The shadows of marine life danced in front of them, but their main priority was survival. Faced with the urgency of reaching the surface, they pressed on through this treacherous journey. Hunger, oxygen deprivation, darkness, and the constant fear of another encounter with the great white shark plagued their every moment. Bernie had some major injury in the head. Mr. Peter was wounded too, but he had to take control of the sub. Mr. Peter had some bearable minor injuries when the sub went upside down. The journey was getting loner, and the hope was fading away. Just when the hope faded, they saw a ray of sunshine in the darkness of the water. A single ray of sunshine brought optimism to their souls. They spotted a small island, eliciting a joyous roar from the technician. They propelled the submarine towards the island with renewed determination, finally reaching their destination. It was a sigh of relief for all three of them and the research panel. All three of them collapsed onto the sand. The research center sent coastal guards to rescue them, and they were given first aid immediately. The three crew members returned to civilization as heroes. Their tale of survival captivated the natives. Mr. Bernie used this to inform the world about the significance of conserving marine life. This expedition was a reminder that nature holds mysteries and challenges that can humble even the most daring explorers.